The European Union has pledged an Africa-Europe global investment package worth 150 billion euros for Africa, as well as an additional 100 million euros to support the African Medicines Agency over the next 5 years. Now, these were part of the deals reached at the two-day AU-EU summit. Professor Ken Ife, the lead consultant, industry and private sector development at the ECOWAS Commission, joins me to discuss the outcome of the summit. Professor Ken, thank you for joining us today. Let's start with just briefly talking to us about your impression, the outcomes for you, or your key takeaways, and the impression you walked away with after following the summit.
Well, I think this summit, this EU-AU summit, is the best outcome you can ever expect in living memory in the relationship between these two blocs. And I think it's a wonderful template for enduring bilateral strategic partnership, something that should be emulated by all other global players that want to work with Africa and in Africa. So I think that's my real impression.
Now, in talking to analysts, political analysts, and foreign international analysts on the Africa-EU relationship, it's obvious that Africa is seeking a partnership of equals. But looking at this package, is that in alignment with what Africa is looking for, not approaching the table via aid, but trade and partnership of equals?
I didn't even see where aid is mentioned in the whole communique, to be honest with you. This is a real living document that actually puts paid to the notion of equal partnership. I can tell you there are 8 major things that they looked at. And vaccine, for example, it wasn't just about giving you vaccine, although they pledged to do another 450 million extra, and then reminded us that 3 billion was there, which will account for 400 vaccine under COVAX. But they also went ahead to say, we will work with you on Africa Health Sovereignty. We will work with you to increase your capacity to develop your own vaccines and deal with future emergencies. We will also work with you on a common agenda for manufacturing vaccines, medicine, diagnostic therapy. Let me tell you just how grave it is. We were over 90% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients imported into Africa is what we are using for our pharmaceutical. So we are hopelessly dependent on imported API. During the pandemic, many countries stopped supplying. We couldn't even get them. Then secondly, you've seen what we are going through on the vaccines that we are promised, 20%. I mean, they haven't got much. So they are really coming to meet us at our point of need by preparing to work with us in knowledge transfer partnership and support productive capacity for us to be reliant on ourselves, to be able to deal with this and work as partners, very solid partners, and put the investment framework and institutional support mechanisms to ensure that we will deliver and not be hopelessly dependent on third parties. Then, of course, on the debt crisis and sustainability of the debt, we know that from 2020, more of our countries in the continent rely heavily on the debt, and they're going to suffer more. There will be more fiscal stress. But here, they reiterated the fact that they have helped on debt treatment under the IMF. They also support the common framework for debt treatment, because that means you harmonize and bring back and bring these things in a better footing, and then also increase the 100 billion liquidity that is promised through agreeing with members to use the IMF special drawing rights to support that. So very, very far-reaching recommendations, and then also combating illicit financial flows, which is really music to my ear, because they are now saying, look, we, the advanced countries, need you more than you need us on combating illicit financial flow, because most of their revenue, government revenue in the first world, depends on company taxes. And companies are invoking domestic tax-based erosion and profit shifting, tax transparency issues, terrorism, all kinds of issues. They are also, they suffer such disadvantage. They are working with us on a joint partnership basis, so they benefit as we're benefiting. Then on the investment package, you've just mentioned it, $150 billion to support investment. Although initially they mentioned 300 billion, but that is still a starting point. So it's very, very well crafted and is pointed. Remittances, they say yes. As long as they are transparent, they will facilitate transparent remittances to ensure that we can get some substantial decrease in the transaction cost.
Professor, if I could
Conflict resolution, we are always working well with them in that. Migration, they are very clear what they want to do, and commitment to multilateralism. So all of these 7 key areas, or 8, are music to my ear.
Professor, if I could just come in here, I'd like to take you up on the Economic Partnership Agreement and migration. I'll start with the EPA agreements. Some African countries, I believe Nigeria is one of them, has not signed. It's believed to be a little bit controversial. What is your take on the Economic Partnership Agreement? I know sometimes analysts tell us that, for instance, many European farmers enjoy food subsidies and they make African agricultural exports less competitive. What are your thoughts?
Oh, is that me?
Yes.
Oh, right. No, I mean, the Economic Partnership Agreement has always been there. And I can tell you, it's not 100% there. There are many, like Nigeria, that actually didn't sign because of our concern on the impact it would have on our manufacturing capacity and others to be. But that has actually been overtaken by what I have seen in this summit. This summit has reached beyond the Economic Partnership Agreement to actually say that capacity that has been your request, we're going to work for you to build trust. You know, Africa has been asking for aid for trade. In other words, let us use this your aid to facilitate trade. And then each time we bring up the issue of subsidy, they don't want it on the table. And then so you see the reluctance, because the French farmers and all of those farmers in the EU, they won't live with that. But the area that is so critical to Africa is value addition, is helping us to build our productive capacity to trade sustainably with you. And then you can see that on our trade figures, trade imbalances, that we are having to do raw materials and then they have to convert and then bring around. That has gone. It has gone with this agreement. What I'm seeing here says we will work with you to build capacity. We will work with you on knowledge transfer mechanisms. We are going to have voluntary transfer of knowledge and technology, as long as we deal with copyright issues and all of that. And investment will come. If you look at the profile of the investment expected on the investment partnership, is about capacity, building local capacity. It's a different language, different tone.
Professor,
what we are seeing here is a very, very different tone.
Professor, I must thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your perspective, your takeaways from this just concluded summit. Thank you for your time. Professor Ken Ife, Lead Consultant, Industry and Private Sector Development at the ECOWAS Commission.